The Generals of the Yang Family, Chapter 48.
We are exploring this incredibly rich narrative drawn from a classic account, specifically Chapter 48 of the Generals of the Yang Family.
Which is just a fascinating text.
So fascinating.
And we are dealing with some really heavy concepts here. Battlefield logistics, human error, and, well, a layer of reality-bending magical warfare.
Yeah, it completely rewrites the rules of engagement. So let's unpack this. Set the stage for us. Where are we when this text opens?
Right, so the scenario we are dissecting here is basically a masterclass in the dangers of momentum.
Okay.
We are dropping into a landscape where a massive Song Dynasty army commanded by Yang Zongbao is in hot pursuit of these retreating barbarian forces.
And pursuit sounds like a good thing, right? Like you're winning.
Well, you would think so, but when you analyze military engagements, pursuit is actually often the most dangerous phase of a battle.
Really? Why is that?
Because the lines of engagement become entirely chaotic. The Song army has this massive momentum. They are pushing forward aggressively. But momentum without situational awareness is basically just a faster route to disaster.
Wow. Yeah, let's look at the reality on the ground for Zongbao's forces, because the environmental cues here are just screaming that something is wrong.
Red flags everywhere.
Literally everywhere. The army is surging forward like a tide, right?
Yeah.
And the enemy forces ahead of them aren't just retreating in good order, they are falling apart.
They're dropping everything.
Yeah, they're dropping their armor, they are abandoning their supply carts right on the road. And, you know, from the perspective of a frontline soldier, this looks like the greatest day of your career.
Oh, absolutely.
You are picking up free loot, the enemy is terrified, and victory just feels completely inevitable.
But it is a total illusion. It's the illusion of complete dominance. I mean, we really need to understand the physical and the psychological mechanics of a feigned rout. Like, why do soldiers actually drop their armor when pretending to flee?
I assume because it's heavy.
Exactly. Physically, armor is incredibly heavy. A standard infantryman might be carrying, 50 to 70 pounds of gear.
That is a lot to run with.
Right, so dropping it makes you significantly faster, which really sells the idea of a desperate panic.
Ah, I see.
But more importantly, it is psychological beat.
Okay, no, so?
Well, when a pursuing force sees valuable equipment just left in the mud, their discipline begins to fray. Soldiers break formation to grab the loot.
Like picking up $100 bills off the sidewalk.
Exactly like that. Unit cohesion just dissolves. The pursuers stretch themselves out and they transform from this disciplined fighting force into basically a disorganized mob chasing a prize.
That makes so much sense. And amidst all this euphoria, this mob-like greed, there is one officer, Deng Wen, who is desperately trying to apply the brakes.
The one voice of reason?
Right. He approaches Commander Zongbao and essentially says, hey, we are flying blind here.
Yeah, he explicitly points out the anomalies.
He does. He says the enemy is retreating too cleanly. They aren't using any of their usual tactical maneuvers or, their specialized magic arts. It's too easy.
And he brings up the map, which is crucial.
Yeah, he warns that they are pushing dangerously far from their nearest stronghold, the city of Shangzhou.
Which is a massive logistical nightmare.
Right. They are stretching their supply lines into totally unknown geography.
Deng Wen is executing some very basic but critical logistical calculus here. You have to remember, an ancient army is basically a city on the move.
Right, 50,000 guys.
Exactly. 50,000 men require an astronomical amount of calories and clean water every single day.
Yeah.
The further you push from your logistical hub without securing the route behind you, the more fragile your entire army becomes.
So he's reading the landscape.
Yes, he is reading the negative space of the battlefield.
Yeah.
He isn't just looking at what the enemy is doing, he is looking at what they are not doing.
Which is fighting back.
Right. They aren't fighting back, which means they are leading you somewhere very specific.
Wait, okay, so if an officer is standing right in front of the commander, laying out this undeniable logistical reality of overextension, how does Zongbao justify ignoring him?
It's pure hubris.
I mean, is he just completely incompetent, or is there a specific rationale he's using to wave away these massive red flags? It's like a greedy investor ignoring market warnings because the returns just look too good to be true.
Or someone falling for a phishing scam because they want the prize too badly. What's fascinating here is that Zongbao actually weaponizes a piece of established wisdom to justify his own impatience.
What does he say?
He quotes the ancient military maxim, speed in war.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. He argues that a relentless high-speed push will shatter the enemy before they can even regroup. He is suffering from what we call victory disease.
Victory disease.
Yes. It's a documented psychological phenomenon where a leader becomes so infatuated with the optics of an impending glorious win that their brain literally filters out any contradictory data.
Wow. So he just doesn't hear the warnings.
He isn't making a tactical assessment at all. He is using a famous quote about speed to validate his own target fixation.
He wants that easy glory.
He does, and he refuses to let Deng Wen's boring logistical warnings ruin his fantasy of a total rout.
So he essentially hits the gas pedal while flying entirely blind.
Straight into the trap.
Exactly. That target fixation leads his entire army straight into a valley. And once they are deep inside, chasing that dropped armor and abandoned food, the topography itself becomes the weapon.
The enemy finally springs the trap.
Yeah. I want to break down the sheer physical horror of what happens next, because the engineering of a valley ambush is just devastatingly simple, isn't it?
It is, and it's almost impossible to survive. The moment the Song army is fully committed inside the valley, a signal cannon fires. Yeah. And the acoustic shockwave of a cannon in a confined valley is specifically designed to disorient the troops.
I can't even imagine how loud that would be.
Deafening. And immediately, the enemy commander, Jiang Zhao, moves heavy forces to block the entrance.
Oh, no.
So the valley ceases to be a road. It instantly becomes a topographical cage.
You are trapped. Put yourself in that valley as a listener.
Yeah.
An hour ago, you were laughing, picking up abandoned armor, thinking the war was over and you were going home rich.
And now you are in a kill box.
Right. And the enemy doesn't even need to engage them in hand-to-hand combat. From the mountaintops above, they just unleash a bombardment.
Wood, massive stones, volleys of arrows.
Just rains down.
Yeah.
You are trapped in this rocky bottleneck. And a 100-pound stone falling from a 200-foot cliff. I mean, that has enough kinetic energy to shatter a heavy wooden shield like it's made of glass.
Oh, absolutely. The casualties are instantaneous and they are massive.
And Zhang Bao's troops try to push forward to find a way out, only to discover the valley is a complete dead end. They are locked in.
The psychological whiplash here is just absolute.
Yeah.
They transition from this euphoric high of an unopposed pursuit to the claustrophobic terror of an enclosed kill box in a matter of seconds.
And there's nowhere to hide.
None. The enemy holds the high ground, meaning they have gravity on their side for all their projectiles, and the Song army has zero mobility. They cannot deploy into fighting formations. They are just targets.
And eventually the bombardment stops,
Mm.
but, that just introduces a much slower, a much more terrifying problem.
The starvation.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Zhang Bao is sitting in this dead-end valley, surrounded by the wounded and the dead, and his first instinct is to worry about the strategic map.
Right. He's worried about the neighboring city.
He starts stressing about whether Xiangzhou is going to be attacked. But Deng Wen, the officer who tried to stop this whole mess to begin with, he forces Zhang Bao to face the immediate, granular reality.
He brings him back down to earth.
He points out that the city does not matter right now, because the army has absolutely no food.
The logistics of starvation take over immediately.
What does that actually look like for an army this size?
Well, without a supply train, an enclosed army degrades exponentially. I mean, within 48 to 72 hours, without clean water and caloric intake, your combat effectiveness just plummets.
72 hours, that's nothing.
It's incredibly fast. Dysentery begins to spread, muscles cramp, paranoia sets in.
Wow.
The enemy outside doesn't need to throw another rock, they just need to sit there and wait. Deng Wen is forcing the commander to understand that the clock is no longer measured in tactical movements, it's measured in human biology.
This triggers a desperate council of war inside the valley. They have to get a message out. They have to.
Right.
So an officer named Huyan Xian suggests they try to slip a messenger out to contact the nearby Yingzhou forces for help.
Which seems logical at first glance.
It does, but Deng Wen shuts that down immediately. He points out that Yingzhou is hostile territory, and a single messenger wouldn't make it 5 miles.
No chance.
Deng Wen argues they need a massive force to break this siege. They need to go straight to the capital, Bianjing, and alert the emperor.
And Deng Wen's strategic assessment is completely correct here. Only the Imperial Army has the mass required to break a siege of this scale.
Okay.
And how? Right. The tactical problem remains entirely unsolved. How do you physically move a human being through a layered ancient blockade?
Exactly. I am trying to picture what this blockade actually looks like. It's not just like a single line of guys standing shoulder to shoulder holding spears, right?
Oh, far from it. A proper siege blockade is a highly engineered environment.
Okay.
It involves layered defenses. You have the immediate sentry lines closest to the valley entrance.
Right.
Behind them, you have patrols moving in randomized patterns. They likely constructed abatis, which are these felled trees with sharpened branches pointing inward to physically block any movement.
Like ancient barbed wire.
Exactly. They would have watchtowers with interlocking fields of vision, and at night, they use watchfires to illuminate the kill zones between their camps.
So you can't just sneak through the dark.
No. A human messenger trying to sneak through would have to bypass tripwires, avoid silhouetting themselves against the fires, and evade patrols that are specifically hunting for anyone trying to escape.
That sounds impossible.
From a purely probability standpoint, a messenger getting through is functionally zero.
Which brings us to the moment where conventional military logic completely breaks down. And one of the most fascinating characters in this entire history steps forward.
Yes, Liu King.
A soldier named Liu King. And his reputation is everything here. His nickname in the camp is Liu the Bold, or literally translated, Liu the Big Guts.
I love that translation.
Right. Zhang Bao basically looks at him and asks, how are you going to get past a multi-layered, heavily illuminated siege line without getting instantly killed?
And Liu King's answer is incredible.
He casually brings up a historical precedent. He talks about the ancient Lord Mengshang's dog thief trick.
Right. And this reference to Lord Mengchang is highly specific.
Who was he?
Mengchang was a legendary political figure known for keeping an entourage of thousands of retainers. But he didn't just keep scholars and traditional warriors. He kept people with bizarre, highly niche skills.
Like what?
Well, the famous story involves a retainer who disguised himself as a dog to sneak into a heavily guarded palace and steal a vital artifact.
So he wore a disguise.
All right, Liu King is invoking this story to signal to his commander that conventional stealth is impossible here. They require an entirely different paradigm of infiltration.
But see, I was completely unprepared for how literal Liu King was being. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it really does.
He doesn't just put on a fur coat and crawl on his hands and knees. The historical text tells us that at dusk, Liu King steps out of the camp, looks at the massive enemy blockade, and utilizes an arcane art to literally transform his physical body into a green dog.
A literal shape-shifting dog.
Yes. And in that form, he just trots right past the enemy sentries.
It is such a jarring insertion of the supernatural into what has been a deeply grounded military narrative so far.
It really is. We go from starvation and layered sieges to a magic green dog.
Right. We are dealing with caloric degradation and blunt force trauma, and suddenly a man shapeshifts. But if we look at this from a psychological infiltration perspective, it actually targets a massive blind spot in human perception.
Wait, what do you mean? How does turning into a green dog bypass trained sentries who are actively looking for escapees?
Think about what a sentry is trained to look for. The human brain, especially under high stress, relies heavily on pattern recognition.
Okay.
A guard staring into the dark is scanning for the silhouette of an upright human. They are listening for the clinking of armor plates, the snap of a twig under a heavy boot, or, the whispered voices of men.
Right, human threats.
Exactly. When a dog trots through a camp, the sentry's brain registers the sensory input, categorizes it as camp animal, and immediately dismisses it as a non-threat.
Because animals are everywhere.
Exactly. Animals follow ancient armies everywhere. You have scavenging dogs, escaped livestock, pack animals.
So what?
The sentry looks right at Liu King, but because his physical form doesn't match the threat matrix the guard is trained to recognize, Liu King becomes practically invisible.
He hacks their perceptual filters.
It absolutely does.
He just trots past the watchfires, past the sharpened trees, past the armed patrols. They just assume he's a stray. But the magic only gets him through the perimeter.
Right, the magic has limits.
Once he is clear of the immediate sentry lines, he shifts back into his human form. And the narrative brilliantly transitions from supernatural evasion right back to gritty, high-stakes military sabotage.
Because Liu King is not content just delivering a message.
No. Liu the Big Guts decides he's going to hit them where it hurts. He's deep behind enemy lines, the sun is setting, and he sees the enemy forces gathering in the fields for their evening meal.
And what else does he see?
He spots their central supply depot.
The logistical heart of the enemy army.
Yes. He describes it as a massive mountain of grain and fodder, and he pulls out flint, sulfur, and saltpeter.
This is a crucial detail.
He creeps up to this mountain of supplies, sparks the mixture, and starts a massive fire. I really want to dig into the chemistry of this because he isn't just tossing a torch onto some hay. He is using specific chemical precursors.
He is. He is utilizing the fundamental ingredients of early incendiaries and black powder.
Really?
Yeah. Saltpeter or potassium nitrate is a powerful oxidizer. When sheeted, it releases oxygen rapidly, feeding a fire far beyond what normal atmospheric oxygen can provide.
Oh, so it burns incredibly hot.
And fast. And the sulfur acts as a fuel that lowers the ignition temperature, making the entire mixture incredibly easy to spark with just a piece of flint.
So it's basically an ancient firebomb.
Exactly. When he combines these elements at the base of a massive pile of dry grain and fodder, he isn't just starting a campfire, he is initiating a rapid deflagration.
And he times it perfectly with the environment. The text specifically notes that the night winds are blowing fiercely.
Perfect conditions for a firestorm.
A supply depot is essentially a massive, tightly packed pile of combustible material. The wind catches that chemically accelerated fire, and within minutes, the entire depot is an uncontrollable inferno.
The sheer physics of a fire that size is terrifying. It creates its own weather system.
Wait, really?
Yes. The intense heat causes rapid updrafts, which pull in more oxygen from the surrounding area, feeding the flames even further.
So it feeds itself.
Exactly. And the enemy commander, Yin Qi, realizes instantly that his entire campaign is burning to the ground.
He panics.
He mobilizes his troops in a desperate scramble to extinguish the fire, but it's just too massive. By the time they actually manage to starve the fire of fuel, he has lost half of his entire supply stockpile.
Half. Let's contextualize that loss for a second.
Yeah.
If an army of that size loses 50% of its food in one single night, what does that actually mean for their operational capability?
It completely breaks their timeline.
Okay.
A siege is inherently a waiting game, right? But both sides have a ticking clock.
Because everyone needs to eat.
Exactly. The besieging army needs enough food to wait out the trapped army. By destroying half the grain, Liu King has drastically shortened the amount of time the enemy can maintain this siege before they themselves begin to starve.
So he shifted the math?
He bought Zhang Bao days, perhaps even weeks, of crucial survival time.
It is honestly one of the most effective single-man sabotage operations imaginable.
It's brilliant.
And while the entire enemy camp is engulfed in this chaotic inferno, running around with water buckets and trying to save whatever grain is left, Liu King just casually steals one of their fastest messenger horses and rides off into the night.
Heading straight for the capital.
Right, heading for Bianqing. He survived the kill box, he bypassed the blockade, he crippled the enemy's logistics. But as he's about to find out, the hardest part of his mission isn't fighting the enemy army.
Oh, not at all.
It's trying to penetrate the absolute brick wall of his own government's bureaucracy.
The tonal shift in environment here is so stark.
It's maddening.
Liu King rides from the brutal mud and blood reality of the frontier directly into the insulated, pristine marble halls of imperial power.
Right. He arrives in Bianqing and immediately forces his way up the chain of command. He reports to the Privy Council, which is the highest military authority, and eventually he gets an audience with Emperor Zhenzong himself.
Imagine that scene.
You really have to. Imagine Liu King, still smelling like sulfur and horse sweat, probably covered in mud, standing before this pristine court.
A total fish out of water.
And he lays out the catastrophic reality. He says, Commander Zhongbo is trapped in a dead-end valley. The army is out of food. The enemy has them completely surrounded. If we do not send a massive relief force right now, 50,000 men will die, and the entire frontier will collapse.
It is an existential crisis for the state.
Yes.
The emperor's reaction is, of course, one of shock. He turns to his assembled ministers, the men who are supposedly responsible for the defense of the realm, and he asks for a solution.
He says, who among you can lead a rescue force? And the response he gets is so infuriating, it almost feels like a dark comedy.
It really does.
An official named Sha Yu steps forward. He calmly assesses this apocalyptic situation and says, well, Your Majesty, all of our border generals are currently occupied defending their own territories. We cannot easily redeploy them.
And his solution?
His solution is, therefore, I suggest we draft wanted posters, hang them at the city gates, and recruit some brave new individuals to lead a rescue army.
Wanted posters.
I am struggling to understand how a monarch in a highly militarized state accepts this answer. I mean, it's like your house is on fire and the fire department decides to put out a Craigslist ad for a new hose operator instead of just sending a truck.
That is exactly what it is.
Is this just historical hyperbole, or does this reflect a genuine paralysis in ancient imperial courts? Why would a global superpower default to a wanted poster when their top general is trapped and starving.
It is actually a painfully accurate reflection of systemic bureaucratic paralysis. Yes. When power is intensely centralized in a capital city, the peripheral realities of the frontier become abstract administrative problems.
They don't feel real.
Exactly. Chai Yu isn't necessarily being stupid. He is operating within a rigid, highly delicate political and military ecosystem.
Okay, explain that.
Moving border generals means pulling troops away from other defensive lines. That risks creating a domino effect of collapsing borders everywhere else. The bureaucracy abhors risk, and it values stability above all else.
But 50,000 men are about to die.
To Chai Yu, the loss of Zhang Bao's army is a tragedy, sure, but moving active defense forces is a systemic threat to his paperwork and the status quo.
So the system is so fragile and so rigid that it literally cannot respond to an emergency without risking total collapse.
Precisely.
It treats a mortal ticking clock crisis like a routine hiring requisition.
They are completely insulated by distance. They do not feel the hunger in that valley, so they apply a peacetime administrative solution recruiting posters to an active wartime catastrophe.
The distance breeds complacency.
A lethal complacency, yes.
And Emperor Zenzong just agrees. He essentially stamps the paperwork and says, "Great idea, let's get those posters printed."
Unbelievable.
Liu King has to be standing there realizing that the government he just risked his life and turned into a dog to reach is entirely, hopelessly useless.
They abandon them.
So he bypasses the state entirely. He leaves the palace. He goes to the Wuning Mansion. He goes to find Shi Taijun, the matriarch of the Yang family.
And this is the emotional and thematic pivot of the entire history.
Yes.
The state has completely failed, so the burden falls directly back onto the family that has already sacrificed everything for the empire.
Liu King finds the matriarch and he gives her the unvarnished truth. He tells her Zhang Bao is starving in a cage and that the emperor's grand strategy is to wait for someone to answer a flyer.
And her reaction is heartbreaking.
The text describes the matriarch breaking down. She weeps, she is stamping her feet in raw grief, because she understands the logistical math instantly.
She knows how long posters take.
Right. Waiting weeks to recruit, train, and deploy a new commander is an absolute death sentence for Zhang Bao. By the time they march, there will be nothing left but bones.
But her grief is not a state of surrender.
No, it's not.
In this narrative, grief is a highly potent catalyst. It strips away any remaining illusions of relying on the state apparatus.
Because while she is mourning this impending loss, the commotion draws the attention of the other women in this massive household. They step out into the hall.
The turning point.
First, it's Mu Ging, Zhang Bao's wife, then eighth sister, then ninth sister. The matriarch explains the utter failure of the imperial court. And Mu Ging doesn't hesitate for a single second.
Not 1 second.
She says, "Do not worry, I will lead the troops to save him myself." And when the matriarch questions how she can possibly go alone, the rest of the women step forward.
They all volunteer.
They all do. This is the formation of the group that is legendary in history and folklore as the 12 Widows. And I really want to pause on that title, because calling a military strike force the 12 Widows is incredibly heavy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a devastating geopolitical indictment.
How so?
Well, think about it. Why are they widows?
Because their husbands died.
Because the state has systematically consumed the men of the Yang family. Generation after generation of these traditional patriarchal protectors have marched off to the frontiers and died to keep the empire safe.
And now the last one is trapped.
Yes. The final male heir of that legacy, Zhang Bao, is trapped because of his own arrogant miscalculations. The state's military apparatus is paralyzed. The men in the capital are hiding behind paperwork.
Right.
The title 12 Widows highlights that the empire is now relying on the very women who have paid the highest personal price for the empire's survival.
The grieving survivors must become the saviors.
Exactly.
They aren't marching out for glory or medals. They're marching out because if they don't, the last of their family dies, and the defensive line of the whole country shatters.
It's pure necessity.
And when the historical text breaks down the roster of these 12 women, it is staggering. I mean, it reads like the assembly of an ultimate specialized special operations team.
They aren't just a mob of angry relatives.
No, they are highly structured, diverse combat unit.
The account is deeply deliberate in detailing their specific tactical specializations. It is demonstrating that a successful military force requires a diverse ecosystem of skills.
Unlike Songbao.
Right, unlike Zongbao's singular rigid approach of just screaming speed and war and charging ahead.
Let's break down the physics and mechanics of this team because the combat geometry here is fascinating.
Let's do it.
First, you have the anchor, the tactician. That is Yu Foren, who is Yongping's wife. The text explicitly notes her as the most intelligent of the group. When the 12 gather, she naturally assumes command.
Which is vital.
Why is it so critical that the intelligence officer takes the lead, rather than the strongest fighter?
Because brute force without command and control is just organized dying.
Wow. Organized dying.
We just witnessed what happens when a commander prioritizes aggression over intelligence, right? Zongbao got 50,000 men trapped in a box.
Right.
In an era before radio communication, battlefield control relies entirely on pre-planned structures, visual signals, and the commander's ability to read the shifting geometry of a fight.
So she is the brain.
Zephyrin provides the strategic architecture that allows the physical fighters to actually be effective.
And the physical fighters they have are terrifying. You have the Vanguard, the Brawlers. Huang Kongyan, Bai, and Changyang Mi are both masters of dual swords.
Dual swords are incredibly difficult to master.
I've always wondered about dual wielding in actual combat. I mean, it looks great in movies, but is it practically effective against disciplined troops with shields and long spears?
It is, but it requires an astronomical level of spatial awareness and rotational momentum.
How does it work against a spear?
Well, a spear formation relies on reach and a singular point of threat. A dual sword fighter operates inside that reach.
Oh, they're getting close.
Yes. One blade is used defensively to bind or deflect the shaft of the incoming spear, while the second blade simultaneously delivers the lethal strike.
So it's simultaneous defense and offense.
Exactly. It creates an overlapping sphere of threat that is incredibly difficult for a standard infantryman to process.
It just overwhelms the enemy's defensive calculus.
It does.
And backing them up, you have En Jinghuo wielding a heavy broadsword, which is all about kinetic energy, right? Cleaving through armor and breaking shields.
Pure blunt force.
You have Zhu Langxiu, a master of the spear, providing concentrated force at a distance. And Meng Xinyang, who the text singles out for her raw, brute physical strength.
She's the anvil that holds the line.
But melee is only half the battle. You also have the snipers.
Ranged threats.
Dong Wei is described as having vision so sharp she can pierce a willow leaf with an arrow from 100 paces away. Let's talk about the physics of ancient archery. 100 paces is roughly 75 to 80 yards.
That's a huge distance.
Hitting a target the size of a leaf at that distance seems physically impossible.
It borders on superhuman, which is precisely the point the text is making. To hit a target at that range, an archer is dealing with a cascade of variables.
Like the wind?
Windage, yes. How the crosswinds will push the arrow. But also, a warbow might have a draw weight of 100 to 150 pounds.
Just pulling it back is a workout.
Exactly. And they have to calculate the parabolic drop of the heavy projectile. They have to account for the movement of the target. To claim she can hit a leaf implies a level of biomechanical perfection and environmental calculation that makes her an apex predator on the battlefield.
She can eliminate enemy commanders from outside their engagement range. She is basically operating a human sniper rifle.
Exactly.
And she's supported by Yang Qiju, another elite archer. So you have strategic command, devastating close-quarters melee, and long-range precision strikes.
Yeah.
But then we get into the unconventional warfare specialists.
The rule breakers.
You have Malninin, who fights with a 9-strand chain. Now, a chain seems like a nightmare to use in a chaotic melee. You could hit your own troops.
Flexible weapons are notoriously dangerous to the user, yes. But in the hands of a master, they bypass conventional static defenses entirely.
How so?
If an enemy holds up a wooden shield to block a sword, the sword stops.
Right.
If you swing a heavy chain at that same shield, the chain wraps around the edge of the shield and strikes the arm or the skull right behind it.
Oh, brutal.
It utilizes centrifugal force to shatter the structural integrity of the enemy's defense line.
It breaks the rules of engagement. But the ultimate rule breaker in this group, the one that completely shifts the reality of this narrative, is Du Furen.
Yes, the standout.
The historical account clearly states she is the literal reincarnation of a celestial star. She was taught secret arts by a Jiwa immortal, and her weapon system consists of 3 flying knives that are enchanted to never miss their target.
Magically guided munitions.
How is a conventional army supposed to defend against this? You have guys in iron helmets holding wooden sticks, and she is throwing heat-seeking magic missiles.
They cannot defend against it. And we really need to look at what the narrative is achieving by introducing this element here.
Okay, what's the subtext?
By elevating Dufresne to a supernatural status, the history is drawing a massive contrast.
Between who?
Between the men and the women. The men of the empire, the emperor, the bureaucrats, the trapped commander, they rely on tired maxims, paperwork, and massive numbers of conscripts, and they failed completely.
Right.
The women step forward, and they don't just bring competence, they bring transcendent, divine-level mastery.
Wow.
The text is stating unequivocally that the salvation of the state requires a power that the traditional patriarchal system simply does not possess.
The system is broken, so you have to call on the demigods.
Precisely.
The matriarch surveys this incredible strike team, and she knows they are the only hope. So the next morning, she doesn't petition the emperor. She essentially informs him.
She doesn't ask permission.
No, she goes to the court and says, "My daughters-in-law will lead the rescue." And suddenly, the emperor, who is just waiting for his wanted posters to dry, is overjoyed.
Suddenly, he has a solution that doesn't require him to do any work.
Exactly. He grants Zuferen the title of Supreme General, giving her absolute command authority, and assigns her 50,000 elite imperial troops.
And famously, he gifts her a pair of golden bracelets as a symbol of imperial favor.
Right. Sorry about the systemic collapse of the military apparatus. Here's some jewelry.
It's almost insulting.
It really is. But before this massive new army marches out, the matriarch gathers them for a final briefing. And the tactical and psychological advice she gives here is profound.
It shows her genius.
First, she warns Zuferen about the enemy's disposition. She says the barbarian forces are stubborn. When they see a rescue army arriving, they won't retreat. Their instinct will be to charge and crush the new threat immediately.
That is a crucial intelligence briefing.
Yeah.
She is predicting the enemy's operational tempo. She knows they rely on aggressive momentum, and she is telling Zuferen to prepare to absorb a massive initial shock.
But her second piece of advice is what completely blew my mind. She tells Zuferen, before you engage the main enemy force, you must send a covert messenger ahead to make contact with Zongbao inside the valley. Comfort his heart.
Comfort his heart, yeah.
Why is that specific psychological management so critical? Why risk a messenger just to say hello before the battle even starts?
Because the matriarch understands the horrific psychology of a besieged commander. Put yourself in Zongbao's mind for a second.
Okay.
He has been trapped in a rocky cage for days, perhaps weeks. He is starving. His men are dying all around him. He is stewing in the toxic realization of his own massive failure.
He must be losing his mind.
He is likely suffering from sensory deprivation and extreme paranoia. Now, imagine he suddenly hears the massive roar of battle outside the valley entrance, but he doesn't know who is fighting.
He might assume the enemy is moving in for the final slaughter.
Exactly. In a state of total panic, he might order a desperate suicidal charge out of the valley, trying to break through before they are overrun.
Which would be a disaster.
That kind of uncoordinated breakout would throw his weakened men directly into the meat grinder and completely ruin Zufiren's tactical approach.
Oh, I see.
By sending a messenger first to whisper, "Hold your position. We are here," the matriarch anchors Zongbao's sanity.
That is brilliant.
She conserves his remaining strength and prevents a catastrophic panic. It is a masterclass in emotional intelligence applied as a military asset.
Wow.
Zongbao thought war was only about physical speed. The matriarch proves that war is equally about managing the psychological state of the entire battlefield.
It is the difference between a blunt instrument and a scalpel.
Oh.
So the expeditionary force deploys. It's late February, the weather is mild, and 50,000 troops march toward the frontier.
And they bring Liu King.
Yes. Liu King, our shape-shifting saboteur, has been integrated into the force as their lead scout. He ranges ahead and reports back that the enemy isn't just waiting. They've established two massive fortified camps blocking the approach to the valley. The Senluo camp and the Blackwater or Hishui camp.
Confronted with a dug-in, massive enemy presence, we finally get to see Zufiren's strategic architecture in action.
And she does not repeat Zumbao's mistake.
She does not surge forward like a tide.
No, she engineers a highly structured, interlocking deployment. She takes her 50,000 troops and splits them into a three-pronged formation.
The net.
She sends 20,000 troops to the left flank, commanded by a detachment that includes the aggressive brawlers and archers like Ninth Sister and Seventh Sister.
Right.
She sends another 20,000 to the right flank, featuring the magical artillery of Dufurin. And Zufurin retains 10,000 troops in the center as a highly mobile, rapid response reserve.
It's beautifully designed.
Her standing order is absolute. If one camp is engaged, the other detachments must instantly pivot to flank and support. No unit fights in isolation.
She has designed a self-reinforcing tactical net. It is specifically designed to absorb the enemy's aggressive charge, stretch them out, and then collapse on their exposed flanks. She is defeating them through structure.
And while Zufurin is setting up this masterclass in military science, what is the enemy doing?
Making terrible assumptions.
The enemy commander, the Third Prince, receives a scouting report. The scouts tell him the Song Relief Army has arrived, but they report that the command staff is composed entirely of women.
And the response from the enemy general Yin Qi?
The same guy who just had his entire logistical chain burned to ash by a magic dog,
Just to laugh.
he literally laughs at the report.
Yin Qi interprets the presence of female commanders through the lens of extreme cultural prejudice.
Right.
He claims that sending women proves the Song dynasty has completely exhausted its supply of real male generals. He views their arrival not as a tactical threat, but as the final symptom of the empire's total collapse.
This is where I want to scream at the historical record. Why does hubris constantly repeat itself?
It's human nature.
We just spent the first half of this deep dive breaking down how Zongbao doomed his army because he underestimated the enemy, assuming they were weak because they dropped some armor.
And now the enemy makes the same mistake.
The exact same fatal calculation. They are judging the lethality of an opponent based entirely on a surface-level demographic assumption.
This raises an important question, right? It reveals a profound truth about human conflict. Ego is the ultimate enemy of situational awareness.
Wow, yeah.
Hubris is not a flaw unique to one culture or one side of a war. When an individual is placed in a high-stress, high-stakes environment, the brain seeks shortcuts.
And prejudice is a shortcut.
Exactly. Yin Qi's cultural prejudice provides him with a shortcut. Instead of asking the deeply terrifying question if the Song dynasty is deploying women, what uniquely devastating skills might these specific women possess? His ego defaults to arrogance.
He just assumes they're weak.
He assumes they're weak, which means he doesn't need to prepare a complex defense. He sends his generals out expecting an effortless slaughter.
He is about to walk into a buzzsaw. The very next morning, the enemy initiates the clash. An enemy general named Meng Xin rides out into the open plains between the camps to challenge the Song left flank.
The vanguard.
Ninth Sister and Seventh Sister ride out from the formation to meet him, and Ninth Sister doesn't wait for introductions. She immediately engages in psychological warfare.
She starts trash talking.
She does. She points her weapon at Meng Shen and yells across the battlefield, "Barbarian, retreat now, and I will spare your life. Otherwise, I will wipe you out completely."
It's a textbook provocation. She is trying to bypass his tactical training and trigger his emotional response.
And it works perfectly. Meng Shen is furious. He is insulted that a woman is demanding his surrender. He charges his horse forward, swinging a massive iron hammer.
And the fight begins?
Ninth Sister spurs her horse to meet him. They clash in the center of the plain. Steel hits iron. The horses are maneuvering. Dust is kicking up everywhere.
Yeah.
They trade blows for several intense rounds. And then suddenly, Meng Shen turns his horse and flees.
He fakes a defeat.
He fakes a defeat. And Ninth Sister, she kicks her horse and chases right after him.
And the trap is sprung.
I have to admit, I was incredibly frustrated reading this part. I was yelling at the text. I was thinking, are you kidding me? Ninth Sister is falling for the exact same feigned retreat trick that got Zongbao locked in the valley in the first place.
It looks like a huge mistake.
They just deployed a rescue mission to save an army that chased a fleeing enemy, and her very first instinct is to chase a fleeing enemy. How does an elite, highly trained warrior make such an obvious mistake?
Because training often evaporates upon contact with human biology.
What do you mean?
We need to talk about the endocrine system in combat. When Ninth Sister is engaged in a life-or-death physical struggle with Meng Jin, her body is flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine.
She's in fight or flight.
Her heart rate is likely spiking to nearly 200 beats per minute. In that physiological state, the highly evolved rational prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that remembers the tactical briefing, shuts down completely.
The primitive lizard brain takes over.
And when the lizard brain sees the enemy turn their back and run, the biological imperative to pursue a fleeing prey is almost impossible to resist.
The prey drive kicks in.
Exactly. The momentum of survival turns into the momentum of the kill. The historical account is incredibly realistic here. It shows us that even demigod-level warriors are bound by the chaotic chemistry of human combat.
So she has target fixation now. She is chasing him down. But Mingjin isn't just running. He is luring her into a secondary ambush.
Right.
As Ninth Sister is galloping after him, an enemy combatant named Princess Baiwa suddenly bursts out from the flank and intercepts the chase.
A fresh fighter.
Now Ninth Sister is forced to duel Baihua. They exchange strikes. And then incredibly, Princess Baihua also fakes a retreat and runs away.
A double feigned retreat.
And Ninth Sister, still swimming in adrenaline, chases her again.
The geometric goal of this tactic is to pull the target so far away from their own lines that their supporting units cannot reach them in time.
They are isolating her. They are trying to isolate Ninth Sister from Zhu Furen's interlocking net.
And they succeed. Baihua lures Ninth Sister far out into the open plain. Then, without slowing her horse, Princess Baihua twists around in her saddle and unleashes a hidden weapon.
The meteor hammer.
A meteor hammer. Let's examine the physics of this weapon because it is one of the most mechanically devastating weapons on an ancient battlefield, isn't it?
It is. It is typically a heavy iron or bronze weight attached to a long chain or rope. A skilled user swings it in a circular motion to build up massive centrifugal force before releasing it.
How fast is it moving?
The metal weight is traveling at speeds that can easily exceed 60 miles per hour.
It's essentially a cannonball on a rope.
Precisely. Unlike a sword or an arrow, a meteor hammer does not need to pierce armor to kill you.
It just crushes you.
The blunt force kinetic energy transfer upon impact is so immense that it simply crushes the armor inward, shattering bones and liquefying the internal organs beneath. It is an area of effect trauma weapon.
Terrifying. So Princess Baihua launches this meteor hammer backward while riding at full gallop.
A very difficult shot.
The heavy iron weight smashes directly into the skull of Ninth Sister's horse. The sheer transfer of kinetic energy instantly drops the animal. The horse buckles, and Ninth Sister is thrown violently from the saddle.
She goes down hard.
She hits the dirt, she's dismounted, stunned, and totally exposed. Princess Baihua reels in her weapon, wheels her horse around, and moves in to deliver the execution strike on the grounded Ninth Sister.
It looks like it's over.
If you are watching this unfold, it looks like a catastrophic failure. A major commander is about to be killed in the opening minutes of the war.
But this exact moment is the vindication of Zhu Furen's entire strategic philosophy.
Yes, because Ninth Sister made an individual error, but she is part of a systemic defense.
The net is still intact.
Remember, Zhu Furen's strict orders. No unit fights alone. Ninth Sister is part of the left-wing detachment, and her backup is already moving.
Seventh Sister.
Just as Princess Baihua raises her weapon for the kill, Seventh Sister, our archer, has advanced. She draws her bow. She calculates the wind, the distance, and the chaotic movement of the horses.
And she takes the shot.
She releases a precision shot right across the battlefield. The arrow strikes Princess Baihua squarely in the left arm.
And the biomechanical shock of an arrow impact instantly shatters Baihua's concentration and physical balance, knocking her completely out of the saddle.
The Song infantry immediately surges forward like a wave and captures the wounded Princess Baihua, dragging her away in chains.
A total reversal.
Mingxin, the general who started this whole trap, watches his princess get shot and captured. He panics and tries to rally his troops for a desperate rescue charge.
But remember who is operating as the scout on the flanks.
Lu the Bold.
Yes.
Lu King sees the enemy formation shifting, wheels his cavalry detachment around, and crashes directly into Mingxin's exposed flank. The enemy line shatters under the overlapping pressure.
They break.
Mingxin barely manages to escape with his life, fleeing the field as his troops are totally routed. The Song army decisively wins the first major engagement.
The contrast here is the core lesson of the battle. Zhang Bao's army relied entirely on his individual brilliance, and when he failed, 50,000 men were trapped.
Right.
Ninth Sister also failed individually by falling for the trap, but she survived because the system compensated for her flaw.
The overlapping fields of fire.
Exactly. The support provided by Seventh Sister, combined with the flanking maneuver executed by Lu King, meant that teamwork and structural discipline overcame the chaos of individual biology.
They dragged Princess Baihua back to the Song command tent in heavy chains. Zhu Furen, the supreme general, looks down at the captured royal, doesn't even blink, and says, "Lock her in a prison card. We will deal with her after we finish winning this war."
It is so incredibly cold and confident.
It really is. But the reality of warfare doesn't afford them a single moment to celebrate, because the dust hasn't even settled from the left flank before a messenger sprints into the tent.
The next wave.
The second massive enemy force, the Blackwater camp, has mobilized their entire vanguard. They are marching on the center line, demanding immediate battle.
The enemy command is trying to apply relentless, continuous pressure. They hope to break the physical and psychological endurance of the Song army before Zhu Furen can fully consolidate her beachhead.
And Zhu Furen doesn't show a crack of anxiety. She surveys her council of warriors and simply asks, "Who wants to take this one?"
And they answer.
Chongyang Envy, one of the dual sword-wielding brawlers, steps forward immediately. "I'll take him." And right beside her, Mu Ying, Zongbao's wife, steps up. "I will go with you."
A lethal combination.
Zhu Furen smiles, authorizes 10,000 troops for their command, and the two women march out of the tent, banners flying, heading straight into the teeth of the next brutal clash. And that is exactly where the historical excerpt ends.
A massive cliffhanger.